Hello again, everyone, and first up, welcome. Today, as promised, what I'd like to do is explain how we can overcome trauma by understanding our autonomic nervous system. Across the world, anxiety, depression, addiction, suicide, and PTSD are continuously increasing. At the same time, more and more of us are suffering from chronic disorders such as high blood pressure, heart disease, and autoimmune disease. Why? Often it is due to trauma, adverse childhood experiences, chronic stress, and ultimately nervous system dysregulation. Our autonomic nervous system looks after automatic functions independent of our control, such as our digestion, for example, our immune system, our breathing, our body temperature, heart pumping blood. And this is all involuntary on our part. It is also, however, responsible for our very survival and to how we respond to stress, basically sensing danger and responding to it to keep us alive. So I'll break down the autonomic nervous system. So it basically has three states. The first preferred state is what's called safe, or it's often referred to as socially engaged state. This is the ideal baseline where we feel calm, safe, and connected. The second state, mobilized, or you could call it danger, I suppose. When it senses we are in danger, it triggers our fight or flight response by sending the message to physically prepare by increasing our heart rate and breathing, releasing adrenaline and cortisol, and pumping blood to our muscles. And the third state, immobilized, or sometimes called simply frozen. If, however, danger, perceived or otherwise, is so overwhelming and so great to fight or run, the autonomic nervous system instead shuts us down physically so that our heart rate, blood pressure, and body temperature decrease and pain-numbing endorphins are released. By the way, this is often the state we find ourselves in during a violent or sexual assault. And it's important that anyone listening to this that feels any shame or guilt for freezing or not standing up to the bully or whatever, you need to realize that your autonomic nervous system in that moment responded. The response happened outside of your control, and it was your body's own way to protect you. So, the point being, you have absolutely nothing to be ashamed of or guilty of. And this is a very important step towards healing. So these three states, we move through these automatically. That is, it happens, again, outside of our control. In reality, though, we are far more flexible than that. What really happens most of the time is our autonomic nervous system is in a blend of states when all is well, when we're functioning normally. For example, we would be in a safe / mobilized state if we were active, doing exercise, playing sport, having fun. And we would likely be in a safe, immobilized state if we were resting, sleeping, relaxing with people we trust, etc. But what if we suffer chronic stress and or trauma? What happens to our autonomic nervous system then? Well, that's when our autonomic nervous system, let's call it ANS, its response can become problematic, as we are now stuck in a state of survival. stuck in fight or flight, or perhaps even frozen. Simple everyday activities, such as maybe a social barbecue or get-together for drinks or a work meeting, can cause our ANS to go into overdrive, where we end up getting maybe panic or anxiety attacks, but yet we're in a perfectly safe situation. The perception, however, is that we are in immediate danger thanks to our amygdala wrongly pattern matching the current situation with past traumatic experiences. Now we are in a constant state of high emotional arousal as our ANS keeps setting the alarm off. Not surprisingly, at this stage, many of us resort to coping mechanisms to bring relief and even get regulation. Yes, I did really say we attempt to regulate our ANS, and we do this by turning to addictive behaviors. But how can that be? You see, our normal baseline state is what we call homeostasis, and our brain continuously works on keeping us there. So, for example, we feel stressed or anxious, or worse, we are in a continuous heightened state of alert, ready to fight or flight at any moment. We can't carry on like that. We need relief. We need to relax. So we decide to have a drink or a joint or whatever to feel better. In the case of alcohol, the first drink causes a spike of dopamine and a feeling of euphoria. The brain senses this and releases dynorphin to counter the dopamine. So think of the dopamine as an upper and dynorphin as a downer. Effects of that first drink or high wear off. We feel anxious and crave another drink to feel that euphoria again. And on it goes as our brain continues to counter in an effort to maintain our normal state of homeostasis. Except we become accustomed, and now we need more to get the same high. So the brain also increases its dose to counter. As a downer, dynorphin impacts stress, mood, and emotions, causing us to dip below the baseline and into sadness, anxiety, and depression. So, as you can see from that roller coaster, resorting to alcohol or substance abuse is certainly not the solution. The good news, though, is that when you do quit, you make it easier, as you can see from that explanation. You make it easier for the body to return to homeostasis and thus avoid emotional instability. But back to trauma. What is it exactly? Well, unlike what we have been led to believe, through Hollywood, etc., trauma isn't something that just happens in war or, a horrific car crash. Reality is we have all likely been affected by at least one traumatic event in our lives, and likely more. The difference, though, between those of us who become crippled by it and those of us who seem to quickly move on from it is not what happened, not the event. It's how we respond to the event. That is how we experience it internally, emotionally. So what are all these traumas I am talking about? Well, there are the common, let's say, shock traumas, which we are all aware of, such as war, violence, sexual or physical assault, fire, traffic accidents. But then there's what's called developmental traumas in childhood, such as abuse, adversity, lack of safety, and neglect. Other examples of traumatic experience would be poverty, coming from a war-torn country, chronic stress, maybe, growing up with parents that could have had a mental health or addiction issues, again, in childhood, witnessing domestic violence of a parent or sibling, or being the victim even. Growing up with a parent in prison, parents arguing and eventually divorcing, etc. A lot of these come under what is known as ACE, which is adverse childhood experiences. And they have been shown to dramatically affect our long-term well-being. With people who have suffered ACEs, more likely to develop heart disease, cancer, obesity, addiction, and depression in adulthood. But you might say, what has this got to do with our ANS, our autonomic nervous system? Well, when our ANS is dysregulated, that is not in our normal, safe, socially engaged state, that can easily flow into a blend of the other two states as needed, it instead operates in a state of survival. And in this state, its priority is no longer the automatic function of our, for example, our digestion, our breathing, our heart, etc. It instead focuses all its attention on the perceived immediate threat to our lives. This eventually results long-term in physical issues such as digestive disorders, chronic fatigue and pain, and even emotional or behavioral issues such as addiction, anxiety, depression, and PTSD. Of course, these ACEs also affect how we manage relationships with others, or how we perceive the safety of a situation, or even a person's intentions towards us. This is because the amygdala is constantly pattern matching and comparing your current situation with past traumatic experiences in childhood. So, how do we overcome trauma so that we can have normal relationships and be socially engaged? Personally, in my trauma-specific sessions with clients, I use a process that is proven and effective. It works simply by recoding the traumatic memory as a low arousal memory, which in turn means that the traumatic reaction pattern is dissolved. What do I mean by that? It stops the amygdala from pattern matching, and you no longer suffer the involuntary recall, such as flashbacks, nightmares, and panic attacks. We can successfully complete this process in 3 sessions over 2 to 3 weeks. And for those of you sick to death having to talk about and relive your trauma in therapy, you will be delighted to hear that there is no need to disclose any details of what happened to you. Along with professional help, though, what else can we do? To start with, we need to spend time with others who are already in that happy, safe, and socially engaged state, along with, at the same time, ideally, avoiding spending too much time with people who are depressed, anxious, or traumatized. The reason for this, as many studies have shown, is that other people's moods and emotions will affect our own. So we have to prioritize, and the priority in this situation is to heal and to get better. Apart from that, spending time in nature, being creative, enjoying hobbies, activities, sport, exercise, music, helping others is important, practicing gratitude. These all help us to get back to and maintain homeostasis. Once the ANS is regulated, it can again work the way it is designed to do, protecting us while still looking after all those automatic functions and allowing us to flow easily between the 3 states as needed. Okay, well, that's it, guys. I hope this short overview helps you to understand better how amazing our body is and the resources at our disposal to live a long and happy life. Most of what I have explained today in this post is only known thanks to the work done by Stephen Porges. For anyone interested, it's called the polyvagal theory. So I strongly recommend looking that up if this is something you would like to learn more about. For my part, I like to learn as much as I can about our brains so that I can better help others to overcome anxiety, trauma, addiction, and depression. So yeah, if you or anyone you know needs help, all you need to do is book a free discovery call with me through the link that you'll find in the description or in the comments, depending on what platform you watch this on. So yeah, till the next time, cheers.